19th century slave turned writer and abolitionist. She is the author of Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, an autobiography she wrote under the pseudonym Linda Brent. She endured hardships at the hand of her master and uses her autobiography to speak to sexual harassment and abuse endured by women slaves. Unfortunately, women and men have been the victims of sexual assault through history, and many are victims and survivors today. Sexual assault is any involuntary sexual act in which a person is threatened, coerced, or forced to engage against their will, or any sexual touching of a person who has not consented. This includes rape. Hannah Gilmore, a 27-year-old resident of Durham, North Carolina, has also dealt with sexual assault, specifically rape. As I interview Ms. Gilmore, I will refer to the life of Harriet Jacobs. I will also incorporate ideas from Alexandria Rutherford's article, Sexual Violence Against Women, Putting Rape Research in Context. I conclude that male dominance of women through sexual assault continues to be a social problem from the 19th century through the 21st century. Females are victims of male oppression through sexual assault, including harassment, rape, and sexual exploitation. Sexual assault is used as a tool to assert power and control over women, mentally, physically, and socially. Harriet Jacobs was subjected to a form of sexual assault and sexual harassment by Dr. James Norcom. You have too experienced sexual assault at the hand of a male figure very close to you. Can you tell me more about that experience?
I was raped by my father, my biological father, for about 4 years of my life. It didn't start out as rape. It started out as a lot of touching, that kind of stuff. And it, over time, progressed into something more. But, yeah, it was, it takes something away from you, because I feel like every person, male or female, is wired with a certain amount of innocence, and when that innocence is taken, you feel like something's wrong, and I felt wrong.
As she writes in her book, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, under the name Linda Brent, Jacobs wrote that her master swore he would kill her if she were to tell of anything he had done to her, and she lived her life in fear. How do you identify with this?
I completely identify with this. It's one of those things where I felt like, or he made me feel as though if I said something, he was going to get in trouble. It's that power dynamic between a father and a child. Abused or not, a child is going to protect the parent. It's that beautiful symbiotic relationship that a parent has to a child. And if a parent abuses that, it's very dangerous. And my father definitely abused that. But, he was like, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm trying to treat you special. It was one of those kinds of things. You don't want me to go to jail, do you? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, why would you go to jail if people knew this? And it kept me very quiet, very tight-lipped, didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell my sisters, nobody, because a parent told me not to do something.
Jacob's master ensured that he asserted power over her through sexual harassment. He reminded her every day that she was his property. How was power asserted over you during your time of sexual assault?
Yeah. My father degraded me, which is really interesting, because you have to remember, for this 4 or 5 years in my life, I was basically the other woman. And I believe because of his guilt that he felt after whatever happened, after the abuse happened or after a sexual act happened, I believe that his mind was like, how can I just keep doing this to her? He would take the rage that he would have within himself and put it on me. He's called me everything but a child of God. I mean, like, sorry, worthless, good for nothing. He has spat in my face. Degradation was his form of keeping me quiet, It was a way of keeping me in a shell. And it affected me, but it's crazy because I didn't show it outwardly. I completely internalized everything, and I threw myself into schoolwork. So, granted, I was making straight A's and everything because it didn't matter if I had to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning getting work done. It was my way to escape what was going on. It was also a way for me to escape getting abused. Because, if he was coming in there at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, I have homework to finish. So it was a way for me to protect myself.
Jacobs was conflicted about revealing her life's story. Writing a book about the sexual exploitation of female slaves was radical. In Sexual Violence Against Women, Putting Rape Research in Context, an article by Alexandria Rutherford, the author highlights that rape was not discussed openly until the 1970s. What are your thoughts on social silence of sexual assault?
I think that people don't talk about it because they feel that it's something that by and large is something that women bring on themselves. A vast majority of people, men and women, feel like women bring it on themselves. So it's not like something that really needs to be discussed. It's like, if you wear something skimpy or you wear something revealing, you're bringing it on yourself. Whereas in my case, I'm 11 years old. I'm trying to go to sleep so I can, drink my juice box at lunch the next day. It's no, I'm trying to be, seductive or anything. It's that, you want something that you're not getting from your wife, so you go to another source. And I feel like this is what sexual assault, sexual rape, whatever it is, any type of physical abuse is something that people need to take into consideration that it is them. And it's one of those societal things that by and large is a male problem. Not always. There are women who sexually abuse boys and girls. That happens. It's more rare, but it's not like it doesn't exist. It does. But anytime in this male-driven society, and this is a male-driven society, anytime where you have something that is male-dominated but tends to slander a male, it's usually hushed. Because men are the breadwinners. They are the people who go out and make things happen, and that's the social norm. So it's almost like, let's break this under the cover because it's what this person needs to do to be able to do the things that they're supposed to do. And, it's time for us to kind of break that shell, move past that, break that glass ceiling, because you have people who are hurting out there. I'm thankful that, somebody ministered to me, somebody spoke to me, that I built a relationship, in my case with God, that helped me. But that's not everybody's testimony. That's not everybody's story.
In order to tell her story, Jacobs created an alter ego. What has given you the courage to break from social oppression of silence to tell your story openly?
I had to forgive him. I had to forgive him because it held me captive for years. And even in forgiveness, it doesn't remove the hurt. It still affects me. It affects me in my relationships with women. It affects me in my relationships with men. Even in a loving relationship that I have with my boyfriend, it affects me. Thank goodness he's open and he doesn't mind talking. He doesn't mind, having the patience of Job. He's very, very patient, and that's great. But it affects him because it affects me. It's difficult, but I had to forgive him because forgiveness was the only way for me to be able to move past it and live my life.
In the Rutherford article, the author brings out the idea that rape is entangled in patriarchy or male dominance. Do you find this statement to be true? As a survivor, what can society do to change this?
I feel feel like society needs to be able to look at the oppression of women as something that needs to be dealt with. Because in this, I mean, there are laws in states that state still on the books, though it's not practiced or not enforced, but still on the books from hundreds of years ago, where you could beat your wife. You know, it's just this male-dominated society. We still live there. We still live in that, where it's okay for a man to talk down to a woman, for a woman to be subservient. I feel like we've taken a lot of ideals, a lot of scriptures even out of context. You know, women are supposed to be submissive in all cases. When you have that, you know, it's just like with anything. If a woman misbehaves, then they're subject to some type of punishment. And we've got to get out of that ideal that men are higher than women. Like women are a second class citizen, if you will, where they are the bearers of life, literally, but they are not the ones who get to have an equal life with an equal partner. And when we start seeing women as equals to their counterparts, then things can actually start happening.